Praise God. Thank you all for listening. I have an interview this week with Dr. Kimberly Wilson, known as Dr. Burnout. I enjoyed this interview because Dr. Kimberly is so approachable. She has a wealth of experience, yet she makes it practical and relatable to so many different people, and I just loved talking to her. This is a short interview. This is my first interview with Dr. Kimberly, but I would hope she would consent to doing another interview with me. I didn't want to take up her time because she has a lot going on. She helps a lot of people, a lot of women in corporations. So I wanted to be sensitive to her time. But the interview definitely gives you a good idea of who she is, what she's about, and how she can help you or someone you know or your team at work to make better use of their skills, their talents, and who they are. And also to be able to rest and be at peace in all that you do. So I enjoyed talking to Dr. Kimberly, and I am just honored to have talked to her. She has so much experience in different arenas, and she's also compassionate, which you don't always find with people whose job is to coach you and make you a better you. So I certainly enjoyed talking to her. I hope you enjoy the interview. And this is definitely a person who I am happy to know and glad that she actually decided to participate in Rise and Shine. It's morning time. She is definitely a person who is trained and skilled in helping others to rise and shine. So let's just jump into the interview. What you're going to hear is the beginning, me asking her what she likes to be called, because we didn't set that up ahead of time. And she says she likes to be called Dr. Kimberly. So please enjoy this interview with Dr. Kimberly Wilson, and I will have comments after the interview. God bless you, and thank you for listening to Rise and Shine. It's morning time. Kimberly, I'll go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, sure. So I am Dr. Kimberly Wilson, and I help corporations develop resilient and agile leaders so that they can increase their employee engagement and productivity, as well as helping women in high stress roles who feel overwhelmed and overworked reframe their thoughts so that they can make healthier choices.
That is awesome. I wasn't even aware that's all of what you did. That sounds challenging and also invigorating, actually. How many women do you say you work with at a time?
Well, it varies between 3 to 5 at a
Okay.
time because it is very highly individualized,
Hmm.
and I've considered doing groups, so I might delve into that
Hmm.
before the end of the year, and that'll increase that number significantly.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Well, how long have you been doing it?
Well, the coaching since about 2018, but I've been engaged in counseling because I'm actually a licensed marriage and family therapist as well since 1999. Uh,
Okay,
so many,
that's
many years.
awesome. Yes. Well, let's go ahead and say how we met. I was
Yes, yes.
yes, I was actually up until Friday the 10th, I was a help desk analyst for the state of North Carolina. And so we supported the vendors for the state of North Carolina. And Dr. Kimberly called in. And we basically started off by talking about the weather. And then she just gave me an answer that just blew me away about an issue I was having, because actually it was the Thursday before the Friday. That was my last day. So it was September 9th, and I was trying to figure out my next steps. And Dr. Kimberly just came in and just gave me an answer that put me on a path to what I was going to do next. Do you normally do that in conversations with people?
You know, I end up talking. I don't do that all the time, but sometimes it does occur because I I I'm a person who likes to provide service. So I give and I help and I support wherever
Mm-hmm.
I'm led to do so.
That's awesome. Like I said, it just blew me away. And I thank you for being a guest on my podcast, which is Rise and Shine. It's morning time. So it sounds like you are helping women to rise and shine and be their best selves. Um, can I ask how you went about wanting to do that as your passion?
Well, there are a number of things that led me to that, but I'd say that it stemmed from two very important and critical things. One, I watched a family member in counseling for a number of years who received no discernible changes in their lives. So that made me very angry. So I wanted to get into that profession so that I can make a difference. And secondly, when I was a young teen, out of high school, but pre me joining the military, so I became a Marine.
Mhm.
I got raped and or sexually assaulted, however you want to call it, and
Right.
the police officer. Basically, I had to trick the individual into believing that I enjoyed it so that
Mm-hmm.
I could survive the attack.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to the police department, he basically told me I was lying and that this
Mm.
was my boyfriend. And uh, so I ran away to the military and I had to rebuild myself
Mm-hmm.
from that. So I've gotten a male dominated organization, actually was assaulted there two times.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to pick myself up from scratch and a lot of the things that I did, I integrated that into my education as well, and
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to ensure that women didn't allow this world to tear them down.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing, because a lot of, especially African American women, we've been taught to, hold it in, don't talk about it, just get through it. So, how would you respond to that type of attitude, which has gone on for generations, that you just don't talk about it? What would be your answer to that?
Well, not talking about it is very toxic, and it it poisons you from the inside out. It taints all your interactions and who you are. And while that experience reinforced that don't talk about it, I found
Mm-hmm.
different forms of expression.
Mm.
So I wrote about it in a class. I wrote about it in the journal.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't formally talk, but I have to admit I didn't formally get counseling until 20 something years later
Mm-hmm.
when another toxic experience triggered that memory and I got some healing from it. But I did
Mm-hmm.
do my own forms of self expression rather than just keep it in because I've
That's
seen too many women fall apart in that way.
right. And you mentioned the word toxic. Toxic is getting a lot of attention right now too. So what would you describe as toxic? What are the signs, or the what resembles toxicity in individuals or relationships?
Okay. And I like to break things down into their simplest components rather
Okay.
than to put a couple of diplomas on it and give people things that they have to look up and figure out what the heck I'm talking about. It's,
Okay.
so,
Yeah,
uh, what were
I
you gonna
like
say?
that because that's how I talk too. Yep. Don't give me the $10 word.
So when you think about toxic, I want you to think very similarly to the way if you saw a medicine bottle, in old days it used to be skull and crossbones. You might just see little red signals that just says, okay, this is bad. This is going to harm me.
Hmm.
This, this could cause my death. And when you think about toxic in terms of interaction and relationships and the self, it's the death of something, it's the killing of something. So the killing of your spirit, of your wants, of your self-esteem, anything that down and does promote growth is toxic to you. um so it, and I can think about going to maybe a family reunion. So I'll say that for so that's usually a big thing in the African American communities, or
Hmm.
maybe a holiday uh,
Hmm.
for other ethnicities.
Hmm.
And think about that one relative that when you talk to them, or even think about talking to them, you're like, jeez, you don't want to be around them. Or as soon as you talk to them, just something in you just sinks. You feel bad. You feel awful. You don't want to be around them because they're toxic to you. Everything they say is they're spewing vomit and venom and nothing good on you.
Hmm.
And then there are other people who, when you're around them, you just feel good. You may not even know why or how to explain it. Those are healthy relationships.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's exactly what I was looking for. And I think the word or the theme of toxicity has become popular now is because people are taking the time to realize that some things just aren't good for you and you don't have to soldier on and just keep putting up with it. I think people are becoming more free to say, you know what, I'm only going to take this in small doses if there's people that you just have to be around, that you don't just delve into relationships with people who, like you said, are tearing you down or you walk away feeling drained. I think people are becoming more aware of that because of people like you who are teaching women that they don't have to accept it, etc. So I'm really enjoying this. I didn't realize that you did so much. So how would you say you relate to the corporate your corporate clients as opposed to the personal clients that you deal with?
Yes, thank you. And if I could go back just a moment to the toxicity, because there's another movement, because you were saying that this is becoming popular. I think another aspect of this is where people talk about, I'm cutting people out, or, I'm just not dealing with this because you're
Mm,
toxic.
right.
There's, and sometimes that is the thing to do because a person is so damaged, or they're, um, uh, they aren't willing to change their behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
other times it would be helpful to engage in some healthy conflict resolution, to
Mm-hmm.
actually say, hey, there's a problem. I don't
Mm-hmm.
appreciate this behavior. This is how I'd like you to change. So
Mm-hmm.
before you decide to just write people off and not deal with them, um, share what the struggle and what the pain is. If it's not verbal, emotional, physical abuse,
Mm-hmm.
uh, sometimes people are just completely unaware of
Mm-hmm.
how their words or behavior are impact comes from a good place, because they've been hurt or damaged in a certain way, so they want to, and I'm doing air quotes right now, mold or shape you or help you so that you don't experience that. And they don't realize this isn't the way to go about it. So use your voice before, and give them a choice before you decide, I'm just cutting them out your life.
That's an excellent point. I'm glad you decided to expound on that because there's
There's people who are in my life that are like that, and I at least always try to stay upbeat and to always look on the bright side of things. And there's one person in particular that comes to mind. I won't name them, but I will just say how our conversations go. It's so once they begin to talk about things, and it continues to go down deeper and deeper into the cave, I try to bring the conversation back out of the cave and, look on the brighter side of things. But it's an actual, it has to be conscious on my part to do that, because it's like if I allow it, we would be in the cave the entire time that we were having conversation. But it's like I have to purposely try to bring that conversation out into the light. um and like you said, I don't think they mean harm, but it's just what they're used to. It's just what they're used to, and people have accepted it because of respect, because of who the person is. But I did try to actually point out in a loving way that sometimes we just need to look on the brighter side of things, or instead of focusing only on the negative, that sometimes we need to flip it and look at the positive, because if not, our thoughts will continue to stay that way. I think they received it, but because it's been their personality for so long, I think it's only so much change that it's going to happen. But I did make them aware of it, and of course, as a person that I can't just cut out of my life completely, but I take them in small doses.
Right. So good. You're talking about managing your expectations, especially if it's someone that you cannot uh, remove from your life, or you have to have some type of exposure.
Hmm.
It becomes less toxic when who you are, who they are, and who uh, you're dealing with. You can
Hmm.
probably say, okay, I know they're probably going to mention this. They're going to, if I share this, they're probably going to say this about it. And
Hmm.
then it's not as harmful because you already know what's going to happen. And
Hmm.
you can plan your exit strategy from that conversation, or how to decide what you let into your emotions, your psyche, from that conversation, and what you choose to expel. Uh,
Hmm.
it Toxic relationships are most potent when you go in with this expectation that they're that it's not harmful, and you're
Hmm.
just this open and then everything, you
Hmm.
let everything in.
Hmm.
So
That's a Yeah, that's an excellent point. What tips do you give someone who, like I said, me, I've been practicing this for a while now. What tips would you give someone who just does not know how to handle toxic relationships? And it doesn't have to go in depth, just
oh
like one
sure.
or two, yeah, one or two um good advice to help them get out of conversations like that.
uh so just to recognize whether or not you're in a toxic relationship, I would suggest just sitting alone in a quiet space where, when you're by yourself, and closing your eyes, getting quiet, and then begin to think of specific, whether if you're in dating relationships, think of the people that you're dating, or think of a family member, or think of a friend, and notice how your body feels when you think about
Mm.
areas get tight. Do you feel sick? Does it feel those are cues that this isn't a healthy relationship. Um, and I think you asked me, how do they manage it, or how do they get out of it?
Yes. Yes, exactly. What steps, if they have no clue, it's like once they actually sit down and realize that this relationship is toxic or maybe toxic, what steps do you recommend that they do to kind of start to release that relationship or pull back from it?
Well, after they get to a point of recognition and say, This is an unhealthy relationship dynamic, because that's the first step. They have to recognize it. Then it's deciding what do they want to do about it. What role do they want this person to play in their life? Because as we said earlier, you uh, just avoid that relationship. You may have to have some level of interaction. So what's the level of interaction? What's the level of importance do you want this person to play?
Mhm.
um, then after you decide that, then begin to make a choice of whether or not are you going to have a conversation with this person, or so are you going to avoid it, or are you going to address the situation. um, my preference would be to address it if possible,
Mhm.
to give them the opportunity to change or not and express yourself. So you may need to go through a process of like, what is it exactly that you want to say, and be prepared uh, for to be invalidated, to say, oh,
Mm.
you always sensitive. Why are you making a big deal out of this? This is nothing. But
Mhm.
you have to be secure in the knowledge that your feelings are accurate, whether or not that person wants to validate it. So share that information, and the way that they respond is a key, because we can't change them, but we can decide exactly how we're going to respond.
Mhm.
And based upon those responses, make a choice about how much you're going to engage. So I like to think of it in terms of a fancy house. And this is a short,
Okay.
but I think it really helps people make some decisions about the proximity of people. If you've ever seen a really big, nice house, it's usually a gate around that house, right?
Mhm.
If you think about putting someone on the outside of the gate, you can see the house, right? You might be able to see the top of the house, but you can't really get to it. So those are
Yes.
people who are furthest from you. You are well protected. They get to know very little information about you.
Mhm.
Okay. So on that same fancy house, if the gate opens, okay, now they're in the yard, right? Then the
Mhm.
driveway. So they get to see the nice, pretty grass. They can see the beautiful house, but it's from a distance. So
Mhm.
but they just know it's a beautiful house, and so they get to know a little bit of the information about you. Maybe they get to know all of the good things, but you don't share some very intimate details because they are yard people.
Okay.
Okay. So then
Okay.
if you walk up a little, you actually get to the porch, right?
Mhm.
These people are a little closer. I call
Mhm.
them porch people. They're a little closer.
Mhm.
They can see some. Maybe there's some blinds, and they can see things through. They can see the little crack in the blind, or maybe there's people with still. What do you call it? Not the drapes, but the sheer version of the drapes, and maybe they can see in a little bit, but they don't know everything that's going on. They just see the nice part of your house, which you can see through the windows.
Mhm.
So they know maybe a little bit more information about you. Maybe they know, oh yes, she's had a challenge, but she seems to be doing okay. But they don't know the truly the
Mhm.
intimate details. They know a little bit more.
Mhm.
Then you get to the people that you actually allow in your house. Now,
Mm.
the people that you let in your house, you don't mind them knowing that your laundry is still on the couch. You ain't folded it yet. Maybe you got
Mhm.
one room where it's some dishes that ain't supposed to be some dishes. They can get to know everything about you, and you're fine with it because you trust them.
Mhm.
So decide where people should be, how close they should be. You think of this porch analogy, you say, "Oh yes, well, cousin Susie, she belong way on the fence because she can't hold water, and on the outside, she can't hold water, and she tell all your business." So I just say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm so nice to see. It's so nice to see you." But maybe my someone I'm dating and that I love, that I really trust, they get to come in the house.
Mhm.
They know me in all of my many shades, and they appreciate me. Not that they're perfect,
Mhm.
but I know they aren't going to harm me.
That's awesome. I love that analogy. That's amazing. And I have to say, I have a cousin Susie. So if my cousin Susie hears this, we were not talking about you. That is too funny. Oh my goodness. But yes, I love that analogy. And a lot of people just aren't aware of that. Just because, like you said, maybe their upbringing or they're just used to being treated a certain way. So they just let everyone in the house. So I
Right.
love that analogy where you're giving them the opportunity to take control of who has access to them. I love that.
Yes.
So I
It's
will.
a lot of fence people out there.
Oh my goodness. That is so true. That is so true. And it's taken care. We hear a lot about self care nowadays too. So that's just a part of your own self care.
Right.
I love that. So what I was going to ask was just in case someone is listening who is in a corporate position and they're like, oh my goodness, this sounds like someone I need to talk to. What are the type of things that you offer to that corporate person who's trying to just make it through?
Okay. So, what we do for corporate entities is we'll usually come in and introduce ourselves and engage in an assessment. In the same way that we do with individuals, we do an assessment, and we look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. What is going on for them in a specific department or throughout their business overall that
Mhm.
is business. Since we're talking about toxicity, so maybe
Right.
it's diversity and inclusion. Maybe they are having challenges with that aspect, or maybe their sales are down, and or maybe they have a lot of people the um, leaving the business, and they're just not able to discern why. So we
Hmm.
go through this process of um, corporation through engagement with the employees. We do surveys, we talk to the leadership, we shadow them for a day or two to figure out what's going on. Then we create a comprehensive plan that either involves, depending upon what they'd like, if there might be some training, either
Hmm.
wide training. Sometimes it's just a specific department.
Hmm.
Maybe it's focused on their board or the leadership team.
Hmm.
Sometimes that involves corporate retreats where we do intensives for 2 to 3 days.
Hmm.
Uh, Other times it just might be a consultation with a few key executives, or especially if they want to bring out a new initiative. And lastly, it might be a strategic planning session where we take key people in leadership away and they develop initiatives for the next 3 to 5 years.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. That is amazing. And I have to ask because you said you were in the Marines. So
Yes.
how much of your
Retired.
training how much of your training as a Marine has carried over into what you do now?
All of it. Um, because there are just leadership traits and leadership principles that guide you for the rest of your life. Uh and I didn't know that
Mhm.
when I went in, and I probably would have vehemently, while I was in, I probably would have said, I'm not dealing with this anymore. But it
Uh-huh.
becomes just a part of your fabric and your fiber of who you are. I can still, there was an acronym to learn some of the leadership traits while we were in that I still remember to this day. It's called
Mhm.
JJ Did Tie Buckle, which is justice, judgment, dependability, initiative, uh, decisiveness, tact, um, integrity, endurance, bearing, understanding, courage, knowledge, loyalty, and enthusiasm.
Wow.
So I,
Wow.
and that was when I was was it 19? Now I'm
Mhm.
54, and been gone a long time, still remember all
Yes.
of that, still embedded in me, the way that I approach things, the way I think about things.
Hmm.
So the integrity throughout my business is a cornerstone.
Right. That is awesome. I'm just fascinated that you were in the Marines. What made you decide to choose the Marines out of the other three branches of the military?
Ah, I would really love to give you a really great story about why I chose the Marine Corps.
uh-huh.
But in actuality, it was my boyfriend at the time went in the Marine Corps ahead of me, and I had
Okay.
just been assaulted, so
Hmm.
that just seemed like I could find protection in that service.
Wow, that is amazing. Because the reason I started this podcast, Rise and Shine, was stepping outside of your comfort zones. Now, to me, enlisting in the Marines would be way outside of my comfort zone, but to you, it was comforting. So
Yes.
I would ask you what, if you have an experience that you did step outside of your comfort zone.
Uh an experience where I stepped outside of my comfort zone.
Because to me, like I said, for my comfort zone, joining the Marines would have been way outside of my comfort zone. But since that was comforting to you, what experience was a leap into stepping outside of your comfort zone?
So within the Marine Corps, and I'm probably one of these weird individuals where I'm just not terrified of a lot of things. So
Okay.
even when it came to, we need to throw grenades, we need to shoot weapons, we need to jump off of this high story thing, we need to go into the water, and with our full gear on.
Hmm.
None of that was. I was always excited to do
Okay.
different things like that. Like just recently, I got into a cage with 10 sharks swimming all around me, and I did parasailing. So all of that is just exciting. The thing
Hmm.
that was outside of my comfort zone
Hmm.
just happened recently, and it's one of the reasons I'm actually doing this podcast
Okay.
is doing social media lives
Hmm.
and podcasts and
Hmm.
being and television appearances. All of that is absolutely outside of my comfort zone, but it wasn't part of the military.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So you abolished that comfort zone by just jumping in and doing it?
And that's how I approach most things. If there's I just like, okay, well, just do it. Somebody somebody else has done it. So the only thing that can happen is that you'll improve, that you'll do better.
I love that. Well, I appreciate your time. You sound like you have a lot going on, but the last thing I want to ask is how can someone get in touch with you if they want to bring you on a podcast or a TV show, or they need your professional assistance?
Okay. So I'd say the first step would be to go to my website.
Okay.
Is drkimberly.com or drkimberlywilson.com. And you can engage with me there, or you can reach me at 704 70660. And look forward from here from your listeners.
Okay. Well, I thank you. You are amazing.
Oh,
You
this
do
was
so
amazing.
much. Oh no, you do so much, and you do it in such a way that makes people feel comfortable. That after hearing all that you've done, um, you can easily be intimidatable, but you're not. You're just down to earth, and you talk to people right where they are. And I have enjoyed meeting you and talking with you, and I look forward to maybe getting to know you better.
Oh, wonderful. I'm going to enjoy watching your journey of growth.
Thank you. Any last words you want before we get off?
Any last words?
Hmm.
Just that never let anyone tell you no who doesn't have the power to say yes.
Ooh, I love that.
So that's Eleanor Roosevelt. That is not me.
Okay. All right. I love that. Still I have quotes that I hold on to as well, but that one is good. I love that one. So thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you again.
Okay, you as well. Have a
All
good
righty.
one.
You
All right.
too. Bye bye.
That was Dr. Kimberly Wilson. The quote that she gave at the end is one that I'm going to carry with me from here on out. It was never let anyone tell you no who does not have the power to tell you yes by Eleanor Roosevelt. An awesome quote. I love quotes, but I think that one escaped me in all my years of collecting them, but it is so powerful. Sometimes we allow people to have too much influence over our lives, and really they shouldn't have. Some things we should just let roll off our backs like a duck. I'll never forget, I worked with someone in my first professional job, and we were up in arms about something. And this person said, just, some things you just have to let roll off your back like a duck. And what added to that was the fact that she just shook. She shook like she was shaking water off her back like a duck. And so she had a visual along with her quote. And that's pretty much what never let anyone tell you no who does not have the power to tell you yes reminds me of. It's like if they don't have the power to tell you yes, then just let it roll. Just let it roll off your back. Don't even let it land on you. Don't let it stay on you for any amount of time. Just keep it moving and keep moving forward. So I have definitely enjoyed all of the wisdom that Dr. Kimberly shared, and just the way she lives. I think it's good to hear a good speaker, but if you don't actually believe that's the way they live, I don't think it actually resonates with the listener. So one of the things I love about Dr. Kimberly's presentation is everything she said, she has actually walked it out herself, which is an amazing testimony, and it's an amazing view into the type of coaching she will do with anyone she works with. And she blew me away when she still knew the acronym from the Marines. I was floored, literally. And like she said, that was when she was a teenager, but that has been what has guided her. Her guiding principles in her life was that acronym from the Marines, which is amazing. If we all could learn half of that acronym, even if it's just the buckle part, I think we would probably live a better life. So I thank you again for listening to Rise and Shine. It's morning time, and definitely expect to hear more from Dr. Kimberly, because she is someone who has awesome wisdom and experience to share. But I do want to be considerate of her time, but I would definitely love her to speak to you all, and you can get to know her better and reach out to her on her website and the other ways that we have told you you can contact her. They will be on Twitter and Facebook, as I have posted this podcast, and you can always reach out to me on the podcast itself by leaving a message or writing a text message. You can find me on Twitter at cterrorwalking.com. I'm sorry, you can see me on Twitter with my handle of cterrorwalking, and also on Twitter with Rara Avis Fly. My website is cterrorwalking.com. So if you have not found Dr. Kimberly's website in any of those avenues of mine, be reminded that it is drkimberlywilson.com is her website. Again, that's Dr. DrKimberlywilson.com. drkimberlywilson.com. Thank you all again for listening, and remember to rise and shine. It is morning time. God bless you.